Hello and welcome to the Indie Author Podcast. Today, my guest is Ruth Klein. Hey, Ruth, how are you doing?
I am doing wonderfully. Nice to be here.
It is great to have you here. To give our listeners and viewers a little bit of background on you, Ruth Klein is the author of 7 best-selling books, is a master book coach, and a brand visibility strategist. She's the CEO of Expert Celebrity Branding, where she works with high-achieving entrepreneurs, coaches, sales professionals, and company founders to help them expand into bigger possibilities and higher income, and to make an impact far beyond their perceived goals and expectations. Ruth holds master's degrees in clinical psychology and spiritual psychology with an emphasis on consciousness, health, and healing. And we are going to be talking today about productivity and momentum for authors. And I wanted to start right out saying that, of course, I've heard of productivity for authors. I've heard of talk about the concept of momentum, but I don't know that I've ever seen these two things kind of married together like this. So, why are you talking about productivity and momentum in the same phrase?
Yes, that's a great question. So, as far as my world with my clients and myself, you cannot talk about one without talking about the other. Because what usually prevents us from being productive is a lack of motivation, or it's confusion or not clear on what we need to do next, or it might be overwhelm. But what happens when people feel overwhelmed? I know I do this. I don't know about you, Maddie, but when I'm starting to write, whether it's a book or whether I'm writing a sales letter or whether I'm writing emails or whether I'm writing sponsor packages for sponsors, if I don't have clarity, or I have overwhelm, you get paralyzed. You feel paralyzed. And so I have to be motivated to get past the overwhelm. I have to be motivated enough, have momentum enough to sit there and figure out to become more clear, or I need to call someone and get that answered. But if I don't have the momentum to do that, well, I'm not going to be productive. And so, I'll tell you how this started actually. It started in 2020, and my seventh book came out, and it came out basically the same day as the governor closed down California. And there went my copies for corporate. There went my 10 city speaking tour. There went. And I pivoted, as we all did, and pivoted. And then finally in July, I went like this. And I had no interest, no motivation to do anything. I just And I thought to myself, "Oh my God," because that freaked me out, because I know how to get out of overwhelm. I know how to get out of burnout. I know how to get out of these things. I help my clients do this all the time so they continue writing, but I could not do it. And it freaked me out. And I left and I went 3.5 hours away. I stayed at this little hotel, and I basically resolved myself to the fact that I'm going to be a bum the rest of my life because I'm not motivated to do anything. And this is what my day looked like. I would sleep, get up, go for a walk, have my coffee at this cute little coffee shop, go for a walk, have lunch, come home to the room, take a nap, get up, go have another cup of coffee, and then it's time for dinner. And then I'd go back to my room and watch TV. And I was convinced, Maddie, I'm telling you, I was convinced this was going to be the rest of my life because there was not a stitch of momentum in me. Not a stitch, not anything motivated. Then something came down. I call them divinely gifted downloads. And I got it like 3 days later. 3 days later. That's like an eternity for someone who's into productivity. 3 hours wasted is a big deal for a writer. And so what came down was, Ruthie, you know what to do. Can you imagine the people that don't have the tools? You need to help them. And you need to make it so inexpensive that anyone wants to have more motivation and momentum so that they can continue writing, they can continue their business, they continue whatever project, they will sign up. And that's what I did, Maddie. I did it. It was called the Momentum Club, and it was a year program. It was very successful. And then I had it the second year. And then the new version is the year of completion. So I'm starting a program called the Year of Completion because what I found is not only very successful people, people that have been very productive, not productive, those that get, off on a tangent, have external events affect them, whatever our thing is, they just need a little help in getting back on track and having accountability. And
Before we get into accountability, I just want to stop you for a minute because I don't want to get too far away from a question I
yeah,
had about something you already said. And that was that in some cases you're using motivation and momentum synonymous. And I'm wondering if, I mean, I think as long as it's a healthy level, nobody objects to motivation. Like that's usually a good thing. But momentum, I can see in some cases is different because I can imagine someone having momentum toward an unproductive thing. You know, I'm gonna throw out, I don't know, Facebook ads, for example, and authors doing Facebook ads, and they feel like they have momentum behind Facebook ads, so they keep doing it even when they shouldn't, when they should stop. And I'm sure you could apply the same thing to every other aspect of an author's life. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between motivation and momentum?
the way that I view it, the motivation is I have an interest. I want to do something. It's like in that situation, I wanted to keep on writing. I wanted to do all these things, but I wasn't taking any action.
Yeah,
And action leads to action, leads to action. So when we're in a car and we turn the car on and we don't put the foot on the pedal, it has no momentum yet. It's just motivation. We have this want that we get in the car and we want it to go. But if we don't put our foot on the pedal, there's nothing's going to happen. And so in terms of your point, which is well taken, yes, people can be creating momentum and doing things that are not in their best interest and are not in alignment with writing. This happens all the time. This is when a writer gets the writer is trying to put something off, because if they take a step back and pause and these Facebook ads are not working and they're going to chuck it, that's brilliance. That's absolutely brilliance. But if they had the motivation to do that, to toss them out, but they didn't have the momentum, they didn't take the first step and looking at what ads work, what ads don't work, they didn't get the ball rolling, nothing's going to happen.
yeah,
That's where we sit. Most of us sit in the place where I want. I want to write a book. I have a motivation to write a book. I have interest to write a book. Awesome. Now what are you going to do?
yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of time. I don't know what to write about, or I'm stuck. So that to me is the distinction.
Great, thank you. And then you were starting to talk about accountability.
Yes. And so what I've noticed is that if high performers, they do best with accountability. And not only high performance, I work a lot with high performers and entrepreneurs and things of that sort. But we all need accountability. We all need to have it's so much easier if we can call someone and talk for 5 minutes. This is what I'm doing today. What are you doing? Okay, great. Let's reconnect in 2 days. And here's the deal. How many times do we put things on the calendar, appointments, and we were supposed to do something or there were deadlines? And then we look at the deadline and go, "Oh my god, I've got to do that." And it motivates us and gets us into action, into momentum to get it done. So when we connect, and everyone's going to have an accountability partner, but I'm the master accountability person. So I can help. I do a lot of laser coaching in my groups. And so if someone's stuck, I can get them out of it within minutes. Who wouldn't want that? I want that. Who wouldn't want that? And so rather than having the mind go or go to the refrigerator to put things off, I remember when I was writing my first two books, I had to have all the dishes clean in the sink. And if I had one dish, I couldn't write. That was just a stall. That was just a stall. But in my mind, that's what I needed to do.
And
Now,
when you're getting people out of that scenario you just described, when you were saying who wouldn't want the ability to get out of that, do you have any tips you can share for how people can do that for themselves?
oh my God, yes. Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to share with you a really important one that is just very present for me today. So, how many times do we start the day and we have good intentions? You know what? I'm going to wake up at 6 and I'm going to write at 7. I'm going to have my coffee and I'm going to sit down and write from 7 to 8 or 7 to 10 or whatever. And then somebody calls, or a child needs something, or a client needs something, or your agent needs something, or your publisher needs something, or you still have to do some research, or you still have to interview someone, and you're not expecting it. And so this morning I had it planned perfectly. I'm a planner, and that's the first key when it comes to productivity. You've got to pre-plan. You've got to pre-plan. And I'm not talking about 5 months out. That too, that's a whole different story. We'll get into that, in the class. But you've got to plan out your day. You've got to plan out your day. Otherwise, it will escape you. So, I woke up at 5:45 and I had my coffee. I did my planning. And it was already something like 6:40, couldn't believe it. And then I planned a lot today and tomorrow because I'm leaving to go out of town. And my whole morning did not work out the way I wanted it to. And usually when that happens, especially to someone who's productive normally, they get all out of sorts. I was all out of sorts. And most people also everyone gets out of sorts. And then they go, well, I missed my writing time. I'll have to wait till tomorrow. And so I was out of sorts. I caught myself and I go, okay, reset. So this is tip number 2, reset. You've got to reset. Now you're going to do this. I'm going to show you how to do this in less than 60 seconds. First of all, you're going to basically say out loud to yourself, time to reset. You're going to take a deep breath. It helps so much. Take a deep breath in. And when you take a deep breath in, your stomach goes out. And when you take a breath out, your stomach goes in. Goes out when you breathe in, and your stomach goes in when you breathe out. And so you take I think I took 2 breaths, and then you have an intention and you say this to yourself, because we don't realize how powerful our subconscious is. We are consciously telling our subconscious, I've got this. I'm resetting, and my intention is to continue my day, be productive. What did I say? Be productive and have fun today. And it switched like that. Because we talk to ourselves anyway. We're talking to ourselves, my day is ruined. I can't believe it's already 12 o'clock and I was going to write for 2 hours, or I was going to connect with my affiliates to help me market my book, or on and on and on and on. Well, I was going to do the marketing, but that person has already left for the day. So my whole day is shot. We talk to ourselves anyway. Why don't we say what we want, not say what we don't want? And so it takes self leadership. When you're feeling I call it discombobbled, you need to say, Time for reset. Take a deep breath, one or two. Say, I've got this, and give the intention or the intention, and then say, I've got this. I can't tell you how powerful that is.
Mhm.
Another way to do that is I do this a lot. My clients have been very successful with this as well. I'm moving along, and you know what? I'm just not going to get stuff as much done today as I wanted. Duh. And so um, I'll say, I'll say this: I have enough time to do what I need to do today. I have enough time to do what I need to do today. Doesn't say that I'm going to do everything, but I have enough time to do what I need to do today. And that again helps you recalculate. We rebalance, recalibrate, reset. Very important.
Mhm.
Very important. Another tip is called the rule of two.
Mhm.
And I came up with this years ago in my first book, Where Did the Time Go? And it's also in Time Management Secrets for Working Women. But the rule of two says if I only had time, like tomorrow, I'm leaving out of town. So I using the rule of two. If I only had time to do two really important things for my writing today, what would they be? And I do one and then I do two. And people will say, oh, they'll push back and go, Ruth, well, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. I've got to do this. And basically say, good luck. You're not going to get it all done. So rather than cause a lot of extra stress that's not necessary, why don't you focus on the two top priorities now?
And
Now,
can you give an example of how granular those 2 things are? Like, I'm guessing one of them isn't like, "Finish my novel."
no, no, it's not. So let's say you're okay. So I'm in the process of writing my eighth book. And so I'm leaving tomorrow. And so the top two things I'm going to do for writing is I'm going to gather it can be a lot of different things, the rule of two. I'm going to gather the stuff I've already written so that I can go over it. And I can put yellow and stuff like that and then notes what I'm going to do when I come back. The second high priority is I have a podcast tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., which means I have to wake up which I do anyway, at 6 a.m., have my coffee and make sure that I'm set to go at 8 a.m. But I also have a high priority project I'm working on. So I'm going to make sure that I do start that at 7. Gives me a full hour. I'm not going to finish it, but I can at least start it or think about it or break it into small groups, but make sure that I've already taken a shower, that I've already dressed and ready to go for my podcast. I'm going to put on my phone an alarm 5 minutes before the podcast so I don't get lost in what I'm doing. And by the time it's 9 o'clock, I will have felt like I have accomplished a lot.
Yeah, that's very helpful because I what you're speaking of is that day getting away from you, and then you get to the end and you can't put your finger on what you've done is a very frustrating feeling.
It's a very frustrating feeling. And as writers, we can't afford to be in the frustration lane. We can't afford that because when we're in the frustration lane, we're not in the creative lane. And we have to be in the creative lane.
You had mentioned the rule of 2. You also had a concept called the triplicate effect. Can you talk a little
Yes.
bit about that?
Okay. Okay. I just love this, Maddie. I just love this stuff. Okay. So I'll be away for Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I come back Saturday. Okay. So, all right. So for me and the triplicate effect, I'm going to be leaving. So I'm going to be leaving to be with family. That's one. Number two, I'm going to make sure I bring toys for the grandchildren. The third thing I'm going to do is that I have my chief technology person is in Bangladesh. I'll make an appointment with him so I can plan around it so it doesn't take away from family time and cooking and laughing and talking. That's three. So all you need to do, I'm going to feel really good. But because I am an ever ready battery, I'm going to go 4. The fourth one is I'm going to make calls on I'm driving. I'm going to make sure I connect with 3 people, 3 potential clients or existing clients on the way there. Fifth is I'm going to connect with my agent, wish her happy Thanksgiving, and connect with her over lunch so I can tell her how much further I am with my book. So that's 5. And then, I'll probably plan, but I write it in my calendar what that triplicate effect is. So, for example, I'll be in Colorado in the middle of December. So I will meet with 2 other people independently of my speech and of workshop that I'm giving. In addition to that, so it's basically putting things together. So you're going to be going on a trip, or let's say I'm leaving tomorrow. What 3 things can I bring? What 3 things can I bring? And what 2 top priority things can I do before I leave? And what are
Okay.
the 3 things that I'm going to bring along? So it's a triplicate effect.
Okay. Another of your tips was project calendar. Can you talk about project to calendar a little bit?
Yes, yes. So I have clients from all industries. I'm a writer. I help clients write their books, their nonfiction books. I help them market their nonfiction books. I'll also help market fiction books. It's more like creative nonfiction, where they're fiction, but they're based on real facts with the changing characters. I will do that as well. But in this case, well, I was just talking to a unicorn founder on the East Coast, and I also have a client who's a realtor. And I shared just recently both of these with them. They have several projects, high level projects they want to do, high priority projects, you can say. And so get your calendar, identify the top projects, identify the top just write all the projects down, get the brain dump going, then prioritize it, and then top priority, and then put it in the calendar for tomorrow and have that time segment, maybe 9 to 11, 12 to 3, 4 to 6, whatever that is. And hopefully you work with your biorhythms. I'm a big one in helping people work with their natural biorhythms. And you put it in the calendar, and that's like a meeting. That's like a podcast interview or a podcast where you're going to interview. It's a gosh to darn meeting that you're going to keep.
Mhm.
And then you go to the next project and you go to the next day. And then you go to the third high priority and you put it in for the third day. Because if you don't do it, it won't get done. If you're finding that your projects are not getting done, this is one way to do it. And it doesn't mean you have to start and finish it. It just means you need to get into it.
Then
Because
when you're done with that period of time that you've booked out, let's say tomorrow, and you've only made a start, then do you keep doing that with that same project, booking out time until you've completed it, and then
in an
that time is
ideal world, yes. In an ideal world, yes. Or, I mean, there's so many different things I could share with you. Or you have it, and because you're already in it, you can identify, okay, I still need to do boom to this, 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 and this. And then you put it together so you don't lose your space. You don't forget.
Mhm.
And then depending on which is higher priority for the third day, that's what you work on.
Okay.
You don't lose your space on day 2 if you can't work on it on day 3, because when you get back to that one that you worked on day 2, you'll see, "Oh, yeah, that's right," and you'll go right back into it.
Yeah. And I like the next topic you'd proposed, which was healthy time boundaries. Talk about that a little bit.
One of the reasons we as writers don't have enough time to write is we don't have healthy, loving boundaries, period. Because may stay home and write, maybe people don't value it as much as maybe if we were doctors or lawyers. And so It's not that other person's responsibility. It's our responsibility as writers, as authors, to say that these are my office, I'm in my office writing, or I'm in my living room writing from this to time. And I'll give you an example. When I was writing my first book, I felt really badly. I felt guilty being a mom. I told the kids, I have three beautiful kids. I said, unless someone is bleeding, do not come into my office. And now I'm a very loving mom, but I had to say that. But then
Yeah.
I felt guilty. And I thought, okay, how can I make this work so the kids feel involved? It's not just an edict. So I said, you know what, guys? When mommy gets her book finished and bought, not just finished and bought, we'll spend one night at the Disneyland Hotel. Because I would never spend it at the hotel. I would spend it at an adjacent hotel. But they thought, oh my, so they were angels. And I heard them go, shh, 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 shh. And then I started on my second book, and one of the children said, Mommy, does this mean when you get this book finished and bought, we're going to spend 2 nights to the Disneyland Hotel? How do you say no to that? So I
Yep,
said, yes,
that's clever
yes,
negotiation. Yeah.
that is really clever negotiation. Leave it to kids. So now I owe them a whole darn week at Disney World,
Sounds well worth it.
but they're not living at home anymore.
Ah, you're gonna have to take the grandkids to cash in that.
I know it's gonna be, oh my gosh. So if we don't share what our time schedule is, if we don't have healthy boundaries, then you can expect others to stomp on your boundaries. And they have every right to, because they don't know. You are the leader of your authorship. You are the leader of your business, and writing is a business. And if you don't think of it as a business, you're losing out a lot, a
Mhm.
lot, on a lot.
Yeah, I like that idea of finding ways to make you reaching your goals attractive for the people around you as well as you did. Um, so the last topic you had proposed to talk about related to productivity and momentum for authors is the SWAT team.
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, we authors, creative types of all sorts, artists, we don't want to be in the frustration lane. If we're in the frustration lane, it's going to block our creativity, it's going to make us tense, and we're not going to be able to write on the page. And so life happens. If you have parents that are still alive, then who is going to take one of them to the doctor if if you had to? Or if you were giving a speech and it was really, a TED speech, a TEDx talk from your book, and you couldn't change it really, who do you trust that could do that? Let's say that a child gets sick and you have to write. Who do you have that can watch the child while you write that you feel comfortable with? Um, let's say that you have all these SWAT, you have these people that are on guard, and you list it. Let's say you're having some financial difficulty. Who would you call to help you through that? Let's say that for whatever reason, you are just not pulling out of anxiety or depression. Who do you have that you can call? Who do you have that can remind you to be grateful? And so you have a list, you ask them first. Most people are absolutely honored that you trust them and believe in them enough that if if you need them, is it okay? Would that work?
Yeah.
And because you don't want to be caught with a fire hose of frustration, a fire hose of time stress, a fire hose of burnout. You don't want that. And I don't know how many writers actually write all day. That is not a plan for efficiency or creativity or productivity. They're called writing sessions, not writing all day long. It takes, I have a client right now who is a ghostwriter who can command $75,000 to ghostwrite a book. And she's an outstanding writer. And she basically can write for maybe 3.5 hours. And then that's it. She's drained. She has to do something else. And there are other things that a writer can do. There's this thing called marketing. There's all kinds of things that a writer can do. It's not just sit down to write.
Yeah.
And so I share that because, when I help my people write books and I work with really busy people, it's not a full day of writing. They're identify writing sessions, 2 hour writing sessions, 2.5 hour writing sessions, even an hour writing session. Just get into the routine of it. So you can start to look forward to it. You look forward to it. You do the momentum and you put on your calendar good times to write. I did not know any better, Maddie, when I first wrote my first book. And so I had 20 chapters and I configured something mathematically. And it took me 4.5 months part time to write the book. And now I help my clients write a book in 5 months or less because I have a system. I
Mhm.
have a direct system. And because I'm into time management and productivity, it came to me and it worked. It worked. I didn't know what I was doing, but intuitively I kind of did.
Mhm. I like the what you were saying about it's not a writing day, it's a writing session. I think that's a really good example of healthy time boundaries. And I also think that there's an opportunity because a couple of times you mentioned, tapping into other people for help and the whole idea of having that author community around you who can act as your SWAT team and for whom you can act as a SWAT team as well. It highlights the benefits of having somebody out there that you can bounce these ideas off of, that you can tap into for support and so on in order to maintain your productivity and momentum.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for going through those tips for that, and please let the listeners and viewers know where they can go to find out more about you and everything you do online.
Yes. So you can go to my website, which is ruthklein.com, Klein. And there's a free ebook on productivity that you can download for free. And if you want to chat, you can basically go to chatwithruthklein.com
Perfect.
and we'll connect. And maybe I can, if you're finding that you're blocked or if you're finding that you want some time management productivity tips, let's chat for 30 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maddie.